Hello everybody, welcome to Enchanted Evening. My name is Kayla and we are going to do a super special episode. Today we're going to talk about Disney's Hocus Pocus because it is of course October, and why not talk about Disney's best Halloween movie ever. Granted, there are some other really good ones out there such as Disney's Haunted Mansion and Nightmare Before Christmas, but since this seems to be everybody's favorite, I decided that this would be a great one to discuss this month. So Hocus Pocus was originally released July 16th, 1993. Why they chose to release it during the summertime and not October, I will never know. I don't understand why movies release haunted or scary movies in like April or July. It makes no sense to me because you want to watch the scary movies in October. But anyways, that is when this movie was released. It is classified as an American horror fantasy comedy film directed by Kenny Ortega, and it was written by Neil Cuthbert. So, as always for you, a couple fun facts today. The film received mixed reviews from film critics at the time of its release. It was not critical or commercially successful upon its release, possibly losing Disney around $16.5 million. I'm going to say that between 1993 and 2020, they got the money back because it is so popular nowadays. And we will go into why I think it's super popular, but you all probably know why it's popular because it's just an awesome movie. Another fun fact is the kids that were in Hocus Pocus were a huge fan of the cats. And I thought this was such a cool fun fact because the cat who plays Binks was actually real cats. It was not all CGI. I don't know if they had that type of technology in 1993. I'm sure they had a little bit, but not like how we do nowadays. Because nowadays, if this movie was made, you know Binks, but the whole thing would be CGI. So I thought this fun fact was really, really cool. Just the fact that they use actual cats. Let me go into my fun fact finally. It said the kids all hated working with the cats. I don't know why I love kitties, but they dealt with many different cats that represented Binks, and each cat served their own little purpose. One was a good cat for cuddling, the other one was good to jump up on command, but with each new cat they had to learn how to get along with that cat and give it many treats, so they knew how to have a good connection with each black cat. My cat's black, so I always say that she loves Halloween and that it's her holiday, but it's really not. My cat Tootsie loves Christmas, but we'll get into that later. Hocus Pocus could have starred Leonardo DiCaprio. He was actually offered the role of Max, but he turned it down to What's Eating Gilbert Grape? I've never heard of that movie. I wonder if he is sad that he decided not to go with the Hocus Pocus, but I don't know. I've never met Leonardo DiCaprio. I never will meet him, so I'll never get my answer on that one. Let's jump in right into the movie. I want to say I love the very beginning of this movie. The very beginning, just right when you pop into the 1600s. As you all know, I've mentioned before, I love history, so anytime a movie starts or takes place in any form of history, I am a big, huge fan of, absolutely love. And then it takes you place in the 1600s where you see all the fall around you. You have, the leaves are changing, you can tell it's cold outside, so it automatically draws you in to October and Halloween, and it kind of just gets you nice and cozy and wants to, be like, this is Halloween. You get the feels, you get the vibes at the very beginning of this movie, and I absolutely love it. And then you have, you have Binks, which his name is not Zachary. I think it's Thackeray Binks. And he goes and he tries to rescue his sister Emily from these three witches. And the witches' main course of this whole entire movie, even back in the 1600s, is to take the souls of children so they can look younger. I get it. We're all about wanting to look younger. I mean, shoot. Nowadays, I call it my old lady cream. I put it on every morning and every night just to look good. So I understand what these Sanderson sisters are up to. Would I go to their lengths? Probably Probably not, but you understand. You get old, you want to look young. So that's what the Sanderson sisters are up to. And Zachary Binks, who's trying to save his younger sister from their wrath, let's just call it. Unfortunately for Thackeray, the Sanderson sisters seem to win this battle. They take Emily's life, and Thackeray turns into a black cat by the hands of the Sanderson sisters. I love when they turn him into a black cat because they use all these and just very all their hand motions are so amazing. So witch-like, so theatrical. I absolutely love it. Okay, so that's the beginning of the movie. Of course, I need to also say that the witches die at the beginning of the movie. And I love it because, like I said, I don't know if I did mention this, but the movie does take place in Massachusetts, Salem, Massachusetts, where, as history has kind of told us, that a lot of witch trials and things happened back in the day. So it's a perfect place and plot for this movie to take place in. So I absolutely love it. Kind of reels you into American history a little bit. Dark American history, I guess you want to call it. Anyways, we go from the 1600s until present day. Granted, it's in 1993, so it's not present day for us anymore, but that's kind of where we're headed to. I like the transition. You have a school teacher telling this tale, let's just call it, of the Sanderson sisters. And everybody who lives in Salem, Massachusetts believes in the Sanderson sisters except Max. And Max is from California, and he doesn't believe in all this Halloween vibe. He said, it's because Halloween was made because of the candy companies, which I actually don't think that's true. I think I have not done Halloween research, which I really need to, but I think it was because they believed that spirits came alive, but came back on Earth for this one day. And funny thing, I always feel like on Halloween Day, October 31st, I feel like a different vibe within the air. That could just be me imagining things. I don't know. It could be my crazy self, but I always feel a little bit different on Halloween. Maybe they had something going back in the day. But anyways, Max doesn't believe it. And of course, Allison, who is in his class, tells him that he's a fool, that, the Sanderson sisters not necessarily are real, but just to, appreciate the stories and the history within their community. One brave thing that Max does is he doesn't ask, he gives his phone number to Allison in front of the whole class. I'm sorry, but that's incredibly brave. Nowadays, I don't think boys or girls, for that matter, would even attempt to do that. So, A+ Max. Though she kind of turns him down later on, giving his number back to him, which is rude, but, whatever. But A+ for him. Okay, so I want to go into when you meet Danny, who is Max's younger sister. And she's so cute. She's dressed up in her little witch costume. You have to love Danny. Of course, Max is forced to go take Danny trick-or-treating while the parents go out to their little Halloween party, which we'll go into a little bit later on. I just think it's really nice that Max does take his sister out. He's not thrilled like any teenage brother wouldn't be, but he is still doing it, which is awesome. There's a couple teenage boys that I want to mention in this movie. Dubular. They're so funny, and these teenage boys that end up picking on Max in the movie, they're so 90s that I absolutely love. And they come into the movie a little bit here and there, and they are definitely a comic relief in the movie, but there's so much comic relief in this movie, so it just is an extra little added sprinkle on there, if you want to call it. These teenage boys are funny, but they take kids' candies when they're trick-or-treating. And actually, Danny kind of stands up to these boys, thinking that her brother is going to stand up to these boys, which, he does, in a sense. Anyways, I just think they're super funny. And then like Danny and Max kind of have like a little heart to heart, and she like falls into a pile of hay, and they talk about like, you know, this is your home now. Sorry that you don't live in California anymore, but you have to kind of get used to it. And I think this moment in the movie is really beneficial to people, or especially kids who have moved from town to town, because they don't really get say when it comes to moving. You know, their parents move for whatever reasons that they have, and it is hard for kids, teenagers, to go to different schools, move from their, you know, house where they grew up from. I can definitely relate to that. I went to 3 different high schools, which was horrible, but at the same time, I think it made me grow as a person. So when I'm put into a whole new situation, when I have to meet a whole different group of people, I feel really prepared for that. But at the time, it's super difficult. So you can definitely relate to Max and how he's struggling if you have dealt with moving from school to school, or even from home. It's not easy to get adjusted to new surroundings. And I've never been to California. I've actually never been to Massachusetts, but I could say that they're totally on different spectrums. So you definitely feel for Max in this whole scenario. But his sister Danny is really helpful and tries to help him get through this. And then they see a big, huge mansion, and they're like, whoa, rich people. However they say that, but their house that they live in is super nice. So don't think their parents are struggling that hard. Just throwing that one out there. I'd be pretty happy. Actually, if I could choose between Allison's house and Max's house, like that their parents picked out, I'd probably go with Max's house because I think it's super awesome. Anyways, they just walk into this fancy house. Now, this Halloween party that Allison's parents have is awesome. Okay. She acts like, oh, my parents throw this party every year and it's pretty lame. Everybody dresses up like they're in the 1700s. I'm sorry, but that would be like the best party ever. Everybody has like the same type of aura and the same costumes on, and they're all like drinking their drinks and just talking all fancy, like, you know, pretending they're in the 1700s. That's cool as heck. Okay, you go to a Halloween party and everybody's in mismatch, random costumes. That's fun, but like if you went to a fancy house and everybody's dressed in the 1700s, you'd actually probably feel like you were in the 1700s, right? Like it would feel like you went into a time machine. So I think Allison's parents' party looks pretty actually fun. Maybe I'm lame, I don't know. But anyways, they all decide to leave and go to the Sanderson sisters' old house. And of course, within this house, Max lights the black candle, and he's a virgin, so the witches come back to life. When I was little, I didn't even know what a virgin was, so I was like, oh, okay, great. What does that mean? Anywho, okay. I have to say, when the witches come back to life, I really like Danny's tactic. She is trying to pretend that she is a witch herself. You know, so the witches won't attack her, let's just call it. That is super smart. Danny is a smart little girl. She is dressed as a witch for Halloween, so she thought, why not? I'm just gonna try to protect myself and pretend that I am a witch as well. Smart, right? I think so. Anyways, the witches are smart. They kind of see past this. Amok. And they know that she's a little kid. All right, so we have the 3 witches. We have Winifred, the leader. We have Mary, the goofy one, who can smell kids. And we have Sarah, who is so blonde and so ditzy, but she is obsessed with boys. And her secret power is that she can put children in a trance by her voice. Come, little children, I'll take thee away. I absolutely love it. My voice does that too, just so you all know. With my cat, so y'all don't have anything to worry about. But I love the witches. I think they have a great personality, each and every one of them. One thing that I absolutely love about them is they go outside and there is black pavement. Now, as you all know, if you go outside in the dark and there's like black tar pavement and lights kind of shining on it, it kind of does look like water. So they think it's a river. And of course, Mary and Winifred toss Sarah onto it as kind of like their bait. And she screams, and then she realizes that it's the road, it's firm. I absolutely love that. I think it's so funny because I feel like there's always that group of friends or sisters, let's call it, that one of them, they're like, we'll just toss her in. And it's so funny. And I actually love when the fire truck comes because granted, these witches, they only know the 1600s. They don't know, technology nowadays. So they've never seen a fire truck. So when one comes flying towards them, they're going to freak out. Anybody would freak out. And I also love how they walk together. It's super great. And I think that's another reason why everybody loves this movie. Another reason why I think everybody loves this movie is because it's so Halloweenish. It has so much Halloween vibes. Like I said at the very beginning of the movie, with it being fall and the witches and you have the candles and it takes place on Halloween. This is the ultimate Halloween movie ever. Honestly, I watch horror movies too. I love scary horror movies, and every year I watch Halloween as well. I watched that the other day. But to me, this movie is so much more Halloween vibes than even Halloween. And I bet there's people out there who strongly disagree with me, but that's just how I feel. I think Disney definitely nailed it with this movie. And obviously they did, because it plays all the time on Disney's Freeform. So if you don't have this movie, you can just watch it on there. So after we really meet the witches again, we already met them in the beginning, but we're meeting them again as they came back to life from Max. We get to go back with the other four main characters. And of course, that is Binks, Max, Allison, and Danny, okay? Binks is the true leader with this. I mean, he's a cat. He knows the witches. He's been living for 300 years. He tells the three kids on what they need to do. He tells them that they need to go to the graveyard because that is sacred ground, which I love. There's something about cemeteries that is totally, I don't really know the word for it. It's just, you get this vibe, it's a spooky yet homey, surreal vibe when you go to cemeteries or graveyards. And yes, I sound totally cuckoo, but that's just how I feel about it. You get this feeling when you're at a cemetery. I always tell my boyfriend, like, do you want to go walk around a cemetery? And he's like, no. He never lets me walk around a cemetery. And I want to go to one so bad. I'm such a little weirdo. I know this. But apparently in this movie, it is sacred ground, which I can totally see. We meet Billy, who is a nice zombie. But I'm a little bit confused by his costume, because the story that goes with Billy is that him and Sarah were a pair. I can't really remember the whole story, but then something happened. So then I think it was Winifred sewed his lips shut. Anyways, his costume to me looks more 1700s versus the 1600s. And we know that they died in the 1600s, so I'm not sure if the costume kind of goes together. Again, I could be completely wrong, but that's just what I kind of saw. This isn't even a huge deal. I honestly don't even care that much, but it was just something I noticed, like, if the timeline isn't completely accurate with his costume. Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Just something I noticed. Okay. The middle of this movie, there is absolutely so much going on. You have Binks that gets hit by a bus. The bus that the three witches are on, the Sanderson sisters. He's hit by a bus. Now, this is important for us to see with him getting hit by a bus because, like I said, Binks has lived for 300 years because he cannot die. We needed to kind of see this, like proof, like, oh yeah, Binks can't die. He gets hit by a bus, but then he comes back to life. Danny's super sad. He's like, no worries. I told you I can't die. And like I said, we see the witches on the bus, and then there are 3 personalities with that. Sarah's sitting on the bus driver's lap. He's all loving it. What man wouldn't? But then we go to the 3 kids and the cat, and they go up to a police officer, and they tell him everything that's going on. Like, Santa Sisters are real. I lit the black flame candle. And he pulls Max to the side and he says, so, you really a virgin? That's all he cares about. They run off. We learned that this guy is not really a police officer. He's actually just a fellow in his Halloween costume. Super funny. Again, when I was little, I still didn't get that. I really thought he was a police officer. I don't think I understood that. There was just a guy dressed up in a Halloween costume until like later on. And then you have the witches that go to Satan's house. It's just a guy dressed up as the devil with his wife. You guys, I love his wife because she is Laverne in Laverne and Shirley. Hello, that's one of the best TV shows ever made. We're gonna do it. I love Laverne and Shirley. So I think it's super cool that she's in this movie. They realize it's not Satan. They obviously leave. But we also have the dance party. That is a huge part of the movie. You have Max and Allison's parents at this dance party, and they try to tell their parents, like, these witches are chasing them. Of course, they don't believe them. Why would anybody believe them? I mean, let's be real here. But then the Sanderson sisters show up, and they do this huge theatrical scene for everybody at the dance party. I put a spell on you, and now you're mine. Oh, so good. Super awesome. Side note, if you are ever planning on going to Disney World during, I think it starts even in August to October, they do their Halloween spectacular show at the Magic Kingdom. Oh my goodness, go and see it. Best show ever. I saw it last year at midnight. It was so cool because I was standing with my boyfriend seeing the show, and my sister and her fiance now saw it, and we were not together. Like, we were totally separated. Because Disney gets so busy, we were totally separated, and the show is completely fantastic and super awesome because you get to see the Sanderson sisters, and they've seen all these incredible songs from the show. The actresses who play the sisters are spot on. They sound absolutely incredibly amazing, and the whole time watching the show, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, I hope my sister is here watching the show. She was. We ended up leaving the park together. That's just how it works out at Disney World. But if you happen to be at Disney, it is definitely worth the money to go to their Halloween party and see this show. Incredible. Let's get back to the movie. So then after the whole dance party, the kids kind of draw the witches to their high school. And I think this line Max says is that this is a prison for children, or somebody says it, because when you are going to high school or school in general, you're like, yeah, school is prison for sure. Or one of the witches, somebody says it, but it's a really clever line. I absolutely love it. They draw the witches into the art room, into like the kiln where they do like the pottery. And the witches end up burning to death because the kids like lock them in this. Do you think that the witches felt like the burning in the fire? I'm going to say yes. But when they come back to life, they're like, whew, like that wasn't bad. That would be like the worst thing ever. And they're not even like super traumatized. But you know, they did spend 300 years in hell, so maybe they're used to it. I don't know. One would think that if you burn witches, that they would be dead. Everything would be good to go. That's not necessarily the case. These 3 Sanderson sisters are still here, and they are still back to attack. Let's just call it. Because, you know, in Salem, Massachusetts, they would burn women at the stake when they thought they were witches. Ugh. It's so horrible to think about. Oh my God, it's so horrible to think about. And actually, they did that like in Europe too. People were crazy back then. Oh Lord of land. Whew. Anyways, I absolutely love this movie at this part too, because watching it, you're kind of sad, like, oh, they defeated the witches. I guess the movie's over. But the movie is not over. Not over. We get a second part. So Hocus Pocus has like 2 parts to it. So the witches are back and we're on the second part of the movie, and I absolutely love it. Of course, the second part of the movie, Max, Alice, and Danny Binks think that they conquered the witches, and they're all back at Max's house, settling down. They do get some salt. Allison gets, a can of salt, jar of salt, because she learns that if she shakes it on the witches, that this will keep the witches at bay. I don't really know if it works or not. Who knows? Though, so wait, salt stops witches, but garlic stops vampires. So we're getting all of our spices here going on. I did buy some garlic the other day to make in a pasta, but maybe I'll have to keep it to keep off the vampires. Anyways, Sarah gets to use her powers to bring all the children to their little house because they want to use their potion to become beautiful. And I'm gonna say that Winifred gets a little greedy because they have all these children. Even like Mary and Sarah say, we have all these children. We don't have to worry about going to get these other 3 kids. That's a little bit foolish. But Winifred, like I said, she's getting greedy. She wants to get the kids that basically pissed her off. I don't blame her, but at the same time, if she would have just gotten all these other children, she could have been looking younger, stayed on Earth a little bit longer, and then seek her revenge, but she didn't. 2 lines that Winifred says that I absolutely love is, "Book," and "What a glorious morning, makes me sick." I feel that same way. Like, when the sun is shining bright, I just want to put my sunglasses on and not want to see anybody. But when it's cloudy and a little bit gray, especially in the months of fall, I'm like, I feel a lot better now. Oh, Lord, I wonder about myself sometimes. Anyways, somehow, okay, not somehow. I had to think back to the movie. They make them, the children make themselves known that they have the spell book, and the witches go and they kidnap Danny, and they want to suck the soul or the life out of her first. They want to make her the first child. And so, of course, Max and Allison go and rescue Danny, and then the witches chase them back to the graveyard. They're kind of going to the cemetery graveyard, holy land or sacred land, whatever you want to call it. Something funny here, Max is driving in the van and Winifred kind of grabs him. Who drives with their windows down in October in Massachusetts? Isn't it cold? Anyways, maybe they're hot from all the anxiety and things going on. Weird. But then the witches have to go chase them, and they no longer have their original brooms because they were stolen at the beginning of the movie by 3 little girls who just happened to be dressed up as them. So Winifred has a broom, Sarah has a mop, and of course Mary has a vacuum. She would have the vacuum. It's super rude but super funny at the same time. The whole scene in the graveyard with the potion and then Max drinking it to save Danny is great. It's really epic. Though I don't understand why Max felt the need to drink the potion, because he just he leaps to go grab this potion so it doesn't fall. But what's the big deal? Let it fall to the ground, right? You don't want the witches to have the potion. I don't really get that, but whatever. Anyways, Max drinks the potion and the witches are turned to dust, except Winifred turns into stone and then she blasts into dust, which is super cool. Am I crazy to say that I would love to watch a version of this movie where the witches won and it wasn't a happy ending? I probably am, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels this way. I think it would be a really cool change to the story. But anyways, the witches are defeated by the 3 kids, and Binks, because thanks to Binks, I'm sure they would have won. And since the curse is broken, Binks is allowed to go into heaven and be with his sister Emily, and she finds Emily kind of greets, you know, beings as their ghost-like self, and it's really sweet. One motion that Bink says to Max is that really appreciate your sister because you don't realize at the time how precious she is to you. And that is so true. Like I've said in my other videos, siblings are super, super precious. I sound so sappy. But they are super great. You know, again, they're the only people in this world who can completely relate to you in a sense where they have the same parents as you, they grew up with you, they almost have the same childhood as you. You know, some of my siblings are a little bit different because I have an 11-year gap between me and my brother, so obviously our childhood wasn't quite the same, but we did have the same parents. So anyways, this movie is, of course, an A+ movie. I absolutely love it. I know everybody else loves it. I think the thing with this movie is why it's so popular nowadays, more so than when it first came out, is that, I hate to say this, but like millennials made it popular. Because we watched it as kids, and then now that we're like adults and having kids of our own, we're watching it so much more and we're showing it to our children. And I think that's something super special. And I think this is a movie that's going to pass on from generation to generation because it is such a fabulous movie. It's just very nostalgic. It's wonderful to watch. It's spooky, but then yet super funny at the same time. Disney, you did such a good job when you made Hocus Pocus. With that, everybody, I hope you all have a spooky, enchanted evening. I'll see you real soon.